Today on Go Island, Cowichan Valley, we spend some time with artists from the Crofton Art Group. Join us for a relaxing and visually stunning visit at the home of Molly Ann Baker. On today's show, political commentator Sean Leslie gives us the latest backstage news from the BC Legislature. Art for All from the Crofton Art Group, including new developments for the waterfront green space in Crofton. All that and a lot more on Go Island, Cowichan Valley.
Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network.
The Crofton Art Group is a very supportive and friendly group of widely varying artists. They belong to the oldest art group in the Cowichan Valley, founded in 1954 by Eloise Kearney, a graduate of the Pratt School of Art in New York. Ian Hardy enjoys the creative process and the dynamics of the various members.
We have a group of people who are very helpful towards each other. I never studied painting, I only studied drawing, and I'm sort of self-taught with a lot of help from the other members.
Nice. So you all learn from one another.
Yes.
Tell me about the work that you've brought today.
My work today, the sailboat is the Blue Nose 1, and that's an icon, that's a Canadian icon, of course. And I have a book on the Blue Nose 1, and that's taken from an actual photograph. And we've actually sailed on Blue Nose 2 in Halifax Harbour, so it's a lovely, lovely thing to do. The hot air balloon, that's my impression from a photograph of our time in Turkey. And that's the area called Cappadocia, which is famous worldwide for hot air ballooning.
Have you been painting for many years?
No, only since I joined Crofton Art Group.
Wow, that's great. So anybody can learn to paint at any time.
Sure can.
So Jackie, I loved your story. Can you tell it again in a concise form? Because it tells a lot about how you were sort of pushed to examine your own art, right?
I can try. Molly Ann and I took a workshop with Dennis Brown in Ladysmith, and I have a phobia about snakes, and this one joined us in the class that day, unfortunately at my foot, and it was not a great experience. And Dennis Brown was trying to explain to us, we were doing abstract paintings, and he was trying to explain to us to paint from what we feel, from whatever emotion is happening. So he told me to take my emotions from the snake episode to put it on the canvas, which took me several days actually. When I got home, I started painting again, but it wasn't until I finished the painting that I actually saw fear. The face of fear is in the painting.
And you thought of the snake?
I tried not to.
That's a great story. So what have you gained from being a member of the Crofton Art Group?
Oh, I think I've gained quite a bit. I have more confidence in my painting. I really enjoy the people that are involved in the classes. They're friendly, they're helpful. It's a very nice experience, and we have many workshops that you learn from. Each thing you do, you learn one. Even if it's only one small thing, you learn something from every one of them. Yeah, it's very nice.
Good. Do you want to tell us about your other work that you have here?
I have two paintings here that are from a series on clouds. One is a cloud over Cruickshank Lake, actually, and the other two are abstracts. One being the fear, and the other one is another abstract again. So.
Abstract, oil, jewelry. The Crofton Art Group will have their work on show very soon. We'll feature more of their work after a brief break. You will be able to meet the artists at the Crofton Senior Center on May 9th and 10th. There will be lots of work for sale.
Bonnie, let's first of all have you describe your work, if you could, please, that you brought today.
My work, I have two pieces that are actually of Chemainus Lake. I often walk around Chemainus Lake and I absolutely love it, adore it. So those are two pieces that I've done, and I'm hoping to do a whole series of Chemainus Lake and have a show. The other piece is quite a mischievous little piece. It's of Einstein, with all his hair going everywhere and lots of color, because he's a bit of a mischievous guy, and I kind of like that sometimes in my painting too.
So you work in acrylics primarily?
Yes.
Where do you find your inspiration? Obviously, Chemainus Lake is a big part of that.
Nature mostly. But I find my painting, I always like to be, there's a spiritual component to it that brings me a great deal of joy and comfort and happiness.
That also sounds like painting, in a sense, could be quite relaxing work.
Yes. Not always, though. It's quite something. You think you're painting along relaxing, but actually your head is just spinning. It's quite an interesting process.
One of the things you said when I first arrived was that you just love the camaraderie in this group.
Yes.
Have you belonged to other art groups? Can you compare it or describe it a little more for me?
This group is just such a positive, happy group. I just love being with all the people. I've learned a lot, and it's just very positive, very welcoming.
So, Susan, I know most of the members of this group are painters or they've been drawing at some point. How did you get started in painting?
I started about 15 years ago painting. I think it was interest in my grandmother's history. So the series of paintings I've been working for the last 15 years have been about the women that immigrated to Western Canada.
Oh, fascinating. Have you learned a lot about your own history through doing that?
Probably not more than I already did. I don't paint about specific well-known women. It's all the women that just came, lived on farms, that kind of stuff.
What has painting taught you about yourself, do you think?
Taught me that art is an expression of how you perceive the world. It's a form of communication. I'm lousy at verbal communication, so it's a form of communication.
Well, you're doing all right so far. So now I do want to talk about jewelry. I have a weakness for jewelry, so right away I was riveted on your beautiful necklace. Now, how did your painting interest kind of morph into jewelry making?
I moved to Vancouver Island about 7 years ago, so I shifted from the prairie scenes to the tree scenes. And so my jewelry work is, the series is called Impressions of Trees. So all of my work has the texture of tree bark on it.
Well, there's plenty that you would be inspired by, I'm sure, on Vancouver Island. Can you tell me about your work today, then?
I just checked, I only have 2 tree textures, cedar and maple out there. I've got a copper piece, bronze piece, and the rest are all fine silver pieces.
I know when I interview Aboriginal artists, they're fond of saying that they love cedar and there are some woods that they just don't want to touch. Is it the same with jewelry, or there's some sorts of metals or precious gems that you really like to work with and others not so much?
Well, with the bark textures, number one, it's got to be a physical texture. Twice I've made molds off of colored textures and come off with a totally flat mold. And I have to be able to get to the tree, and the tree has to photograph nicely because everything has the photograph of the tree itself on the cards. So the trees have to fit a whole bunch of criterion before I can take the mold off of them. Mm-hmm. And plus the texture can't be so great that you can't make a tiny little object and see the texture on it. So.
And what about copper or silver? Do you prefer certain metals?
No, they all have characteristics that are good.
I just picture you like trying to get to a very high branch because it's fascinating and works for art, but it never occurred to me that you would have quite a challenge just finding the pieces.
Yeah, and blackberry is a very nice plant, yes.
The 60th Anniversary Crofton Art Show and Sale happens May 9th and 10th from 10 until 5 p.m. at the Crofton Senior Centre, 1507 Joan Avenue in Crofton. We'll be back after a brief break with news from the BC Legislature, and then we'll be featuring more creative work from Crofton artists. The Crofton artists will be making a public art installation in Crofton very soon. You are invited to participate in this celebration. Sue Bosecker will give details as we continue with our focus on the Crofton Art Group.
Sue, you gave me a lot of inspiration when you said anybody can do this at any point in their life. So tell me a little about how you got started painting.
I actually got started in high school. My art teacher was an inspiration to me. He would come along and just with a flick of a pencil, the picture would come together. And I loved it. Unfortunately, life got in the way, and I didn't do a lot of painting until, into my 20s. Then life got in the way again, and I picked it up. So it just kept rolling that way. And by joining different organizations, and especially this club, my artwork has just progressed.
Lovely. Well, tell me about the pieces you have here today.
One of them is a portrait of my uncle, Uncle Billy. He was a faller, and I loved his orange toque, and it just sort of stood out. And I had visited him one day at his little mill in Coombs and wanted to paint a picture of him. The other one is a derelict rowboat, and it's actually in the middle of Crofton by the Crofton Hotel. And it's just a little vignette that I chose to paint.
How do you choose your subjects?
Just the way they speak to me, the way I feel about them. Each time you see a little corner of the world, it sort of speaks to you. I also like to go around and take photographs and then refer back to my photographs and say, oh yes, I like that little corner. Let's see if I can paint it.
Let's talk about this great new development that will soon happen, the kiosk.
The kiosk, yes. Since it is our 60th anniversary as an art group, we felt we should do something special. So we came up with this idea of an art kiosk. We approached the Crofton Community Centre Society, and they agreed to pay for the actual material for the kiosk. And then we approached the municipality of North Cowichan and Parks and Rec Department, and they agreed to do the actual construction, installation, and maintenance for us. So it's all coming together. Many members of our group, there's 25 members of our group, did actual paintings. We have 4 different sizes of these paintings that with these 25 paintings, they will be displayed on a background of sea, Salt Spring Island, and Mount Baker, and in a sunrise colors. And that will be displayed in the kiosk in the green space near the parking lot for the Salt Spring Island Ferry. And we will be doing the grand opening of the kiosk on May 9th at 2 o'clock with our mayor coming to cut the ribbon.
The 60th Anniversary Crofton Art Show and Sale happens May 9th and 10th from 10 until 5 p.m. at the Crofton Senior Centre, 1507 Joan Avenue in Crofton. The Crofton Art Group have such an extensive collection of art that they hang work in many offices and public spaces in the Cowichan Valley, including the Sunridge Manor in Duncan, the Senior Centres in Crofton and in Chemainus, and Amy Jo's in Crofton. You can also enjoy their work at the Lodge on 4th in Ladysmith, the Duncan Library, and even in MLA Doug Routley's office in Duncan. Molly Ann Baker is a member of the Crofton Art Group, and she's fond of painting people she has met in her world travels.
Well, there's 2 I will mention. One is of a watercolor of a Mr. Ernie Healy from New Zealand. My husband and I were on holiday. Saw this beautiful garden. The gardener came out, and I asked if I could have permission to take some close-up photographs. And he said, at my age, my dear, it doesn't matter a damn. So he just let me focus in really closely. And I've done a watercolor of Mr. Healy. And the other is a larger painting, acrylic. It's one my husband took when we were in Lima, Peru, and he went for a walk and he found the street man. And in the photograph itself, I couldn't see the details until I had it blown up to do my work from that point. And the gentleman is holding some small cards, and the card is a face of Jesus Christ, and he has his rosary and a cross. But where he's sitting in his chair on that sidewalk, this was his home. And that's what gravitated me to that photograph.
So characters really speak to you.
Yes, they do, very much.
Images.
Yes.
That's really interesting to hear how you came across him as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tell me about the education that happens. There are regular workshops that everybody says are really inspirational and motivational.
The workshops are fabulous. They are so much fun. We learn, as it was mentioned, we learn something every time we go. There is great variety. We don't just stick to one theme. We try and go beyond that and just reach out. So we bring in a lot of different artists to help us, and their work is wonderful. Beautiful work, yeah.
And you also have critiques?
Yes, we do. Now, the critiquing happens when we have our monthly meeting once a month, and we have a theme. So whoever wants to participate, they can bring their painting in. And if you bring a painting, you only have to put 25 cents in the pot. If you haven't brought a painting, you pay 50 cents into the pot. And then our group chooses the painting that appeals to them the most. So the person who is chosen, they get a little cash bonus at the end of that meeting, and it buys a paintbrush. You know, it's good for that. And yes, the themes are very, very helpful. Really helpful.
Sounds like a really good incentive
Yeah,
plan.
yeah. It's encouraging. It focuses you to get something done.
So, Molly-Ann, the last thing I wanted to ask you was, there are all kinds of art shows and sales all over Vancouver Island, but this small group sounds like they do very well. It's usually very popular, I hear.
Yes, yes, it is. Our spring show is for 2 days, the 9th and the 10th, coming up very soon. And in the fall, we have a one-day show. It's always busy. You know, we open up at 10, and the people start coming in, and we close at 5, and they're just leaving. But one thing I've really noticed with our shows, so many of our artists will come together, and we have so much fun because we have time to relax and talk and chat and just have a great time. And there's often beautiful music as well at our show, so it's nice to hear that as you're approaching the building. We just have a very, very good time. And I do want to say that I joined this group because they were so down to earth. And that's what I love about the Crofton Group.
That's our program for this week. The Crofton Show and Sale happens on May 9th and 10th from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. at the Crofton Senior Centre. Join in on Friday, May 9th at 2 p.m. for the opening and ribbon-cutting ceremony of the Crofton Art Group kiosk by the Mayor of North Cowichan, John Lefepier. That's happening at the Waterfront Green Space in Crofton, near the ferry terminal. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Go Island is brought to you by German Auto Import Network. Women's clothing provided by Tulip Noir. Casual designer fashions. Men's wardrobe by DG Bremner & Co. Menswear and accessories. Hair services provided by Salon J.